Microphone check 212. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man, Babe. I hope you guys can hear the grin in my face when I come in with this hot ass intro. I know you can't visually see me, and hopefully one day we will get some visuals incorporated to the podcast. But man, oh man, is my face grinning when I come into this podcast. And I am extremely excited, nervous, anxious, overwhelmed about this podcast episode, what we have packed for today's episode. I'm a tad bit nervous about what I'm about to be saying in this podcast, and that makes me even more excited because that's the point of doing content. It is podcasting specifically, and also this podcast show. I'm trying to push myself outside the comfort zone and talk about shit that makes me uncomfortable for all the right reasons. And today's episode is going to be something that makes me very uncomfortable to share and talk about, but I need to do this. And I have wanted to do this type of an episode for a little bit, and I have pushed it off, and I've pushed it off. And so today we're finally going there. We're going lengths. We're going into some deep shit. And whoa, this is going to be an interesting one. That's all I'm going to say. Quick couple of things before we dive into the hot topic of today. Housekeeping. Great weekend coming off. I love giving you guys a little status update on the bearded man. You know what I'm saying? Had a great Friday night dinner date with one of my mans, Jamie Fondulis. You know what I'm saying? I'd be going on dinner dates with the bros. And he's one of my boys that I work with at Liquid IV. So I got to catch up with him on Friday night. And then Saturday night, got to connect with my man, Zach Hanavar. Both incredible people. So I feel very fortunate to have back-to-back dates with some extremely good-looking men, both of which have fantastic beards, might I say. So that was awesome. Sunday, recorded a podcast with a guy by the name of John Kilmer. That'll be coming out in a few weeks. He is the producer of a podcast called YNK Podcast, hosted by Mike, formerly known as Mike Stud. And John kind of came up with Mike in his career over the last decade, I would say. So that was awesome to connect with him. And then today we had episode 36 of the podcast drop with my man Michael Garmany, also formerly known as The Hold Up. And we dive into some deep ass shit, man. We talk about rebranding as an artist. We talk about the side effects of casual sex / porn. We talk about carnivore diet. We talk about him being sober for 5 years. We talk about him starting a podcast. We talk about a lot of good stuff. So if you enjoyed today's podcast and you're looking for more content to consume, I would suggest going back to episode 36 and getting to know Michael Garmany. Old music was The Hold Up. Check out his music too. Incredible. So a lot of good things in the works. A lot of good things moving forward. Constant work in progress. As you already know, the bearded man just working. Trying to put in that work, baby. And become a better version of myself every single day. A little bit more. Something I recently just started doing. And actually inspired by my date night number 2 on Saturday with Zach. Today is going to be the second day I do 40 minutes of meditation. Long story short, ever since I started meditating, it's been 10 minutes a day, which has been great. But something new I'm incorporating, and we'll see how long I go for with it. 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at the end of the day, and seeing how that adjusts the way I feel. Testing that, reading a book right now called Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. Highly recommend reading that book to anyone who hears this. Hopefully I'll get Jay on the podcast sometime soon. Saying it now so I can cut this clip and, pull it back when the day comes and I get Jay Shetty on the podcast. But other than that, feel good, feel healthy, feel mentally clear. And like I said, nervous, excited, anxious about going into today's podcast. But you know what? This is what I signed up for as a podcaster. And I'm fully committed to what we're going to dive into. So today's topic, importance of self-love and not listening to society's rules and expectations. I say this in recent podcasts, I've been incorporating this, but I really mean it in today's episode. If I provide any value throughout this episode, especially with what I'm about to open up, I'm about to be an open book on some real personal shit. If I provide any ounce of value through this episode, please screenshot the episode, post it to your IG story, tag me at Babe, B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y, and tell the world what you're learning or what was insightful or just something. Share it out. This is maybe the episode that'll blow me up. Probably not, but it would be hilarious if this is the one, because this is going to be the most vulnerable that I've ever been. But in all seriousness, that really, really helps us grow this movement. And anybody out there that has been sharing it out and reposting it, I try to make sure that I'm thoughtful in responding to every single person and saying, thank you, because I really do appreciate it. So once again, if you enjoy this podcast at any moment in time and there's any ounce of value, makes you laugh, makes you giggle, smile, cry, I don't know what the emotion might be, but if I trigger something, screenshot, post it to your IG story, tag me at Bobby, B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. All right. Let's do this. Let's get into it. Let's do it. No going back at this point. Full throttle, full steam ahead. I'm committed. No going back. What's inspiring today's topic? Couple things. One would be started throwing myself back into the dating scene back in August. So we'll get into the self-love towards the end of the podcast. This is more about not giving into society's rules and expectations, and this will make more sense in a second. But you could tell this is going to be a very dating, like, love relationship, trying to find significant others, trying to have some fun. That's where we're going with this conversation. So back in August, started throwing myself out there into the dating scene in LA. First time I'd ever really thrown myself out there since living in LA. Another reason this podcast is being inspired was the podcast that I just had with Michael Garmany, where we dive into relationships and finding love and the pros and cons of, like, casual sex, which society could glamorize as like the cool thing through movies, right? You just like, if you're a bro, you're hooking up all these girls, or you have whatever. You know what I'm trying to say, like casual sex, whatever. So that conversation with Michael and how transparent and open he was with me, that inspired me. I actually got a DM from somebody today about relationship advice because of the podcast with Mike Garmany. And then one of my buddies, Jamie, who I just had this dinner date with on Friday, I was kind of confessing to him and being completely authentic to him about just like, we were talking about life and everything. And I kind of opened up to him about like relationships and how sometimes it kind of eats me away when I think about like, I'm not somebody that's really dating. I haven't had anything consistent in a long time, not just like hooking up with people. There's like all this mind chatter. And so all these things have been leading up. And I wanted to talk about some of this real shit today on a podcast, and I haven't, and I've kind of danced around it, and I put out podcasts that kind of touch a little bit of it, but I haven't committed to a full episode about this type of convo, and I need to do it. I need to take the weight off my shoulders. I need to put this shit out into the world, and there's no going back at this point. So, a fun fact about me, we're going there. We're going there. I'm going to keep it 100 with you guys. I'm going to be straightforward. Everything I talk about in this episode is completely real and authentic. Take it for what it is. Judge me. Call me whatever you want. It doesn't matter. This is me. I stand by everything I say, and I'm authentically myself at the end of the day. So keep it 100% with you guys and gals. 100 emoji. I have not slept with a girl in 3 years. Now... saying that out loud, one, sounds crazy. Two, people might hear that and be like, can take this so many different ways depending on your beliefs, your backgrounds, and whatever. Interesting enough, the last girl that I did sleep with, the night I met her, which was a one-night stand, so that wasn't, that's whatever, it was actually the same night that I met David Dobrik, or he was in the same party as me, which is really weird because I've never seen that guy again. Haven't seen him since, and also... didn't even really know who he was at the time, so that's really interesting. Anywho, fun fact, David Dobrik was there that night. So, having not slept with a girl in 3+ years, had a couple little hookups here and there, but nothing that like, more than kissing really, a little touchy, a little feely other than that. But straight up, and I'm sharing this through a podcast because I can't just like post it. I would never just post this on an Instagram story. I would never post this on the feed. Like, there's no way to really... talk about this authentically other than a podcast. Okay, so we got that out of the way. And the reason I'm saying that, and you don't even understand how much it's taking me to even admit to that, because I feel like so many things. Society would say, I have no game. I'm not attractive, I have a bad personality, or there can be all these things that in our minds that I have dealt with since this moment in time with this girl that have actually eaten me away. For somebody who is extremely confident and vulnerable and authentically himself, society, and I'm not blaming society, but it's because of the environment I am in life, and maybe like the US, I don't know what it is, but it's led me to believe that Bobby, the bearded man, you haven't slept with a girl in 3 years, which means that you're not attractive, your personality is shit, girls don't like you, blah, 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 insert like everything that could knock me down. I've done that. And I've even danced around this blatant statement because I remember the time, and it's not like I've been sitting here keeping a tally of how many days it's been since, but I know, like, it's something that I've kept track in the back of my mind. And I've always danced around it on podcasts, and I'm just done doing that shit. I'm done trying to not just fess up to like the honest truth and be okay with that and not think anything down about myself because of that. That has no correlation to anything about myself, but I've allowed myself to believe that because I haven't slept with a girl, I'm not, attractive. All these things that have eaten me away. And I let it get to my head. Like, to be 100% honest, I've let it get to my head. This is not something that runs through my mind every day, every week. It's like there's these moments where it can kind of bother me more than it does than other times. And so then I start questioning myself and the decisions that I make. What type of energy are you portraying to the world? What is it about your physical appearance that maybe would scare someone away? Am I not aggressive enough to girls so that they don't even think I'm interested? Or am I too aggressive and show too interest too quickly? Because as we know, you kind of have to play this game most of the time, I feel like, with relationships and like in those early stages of getting to know somebody. It's like you don't want to give them all the attention. You also don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Like, it's fucked up, but it's truthful, I think. I mean, I've watched videos on this shit. I've literally YouTubed it. Shout out to Matthew Hussey if you ever hear this, which you won't, but this guy's like a freaking relationship guru, and he literally tells you, like, keep people on their toes. Don't always respond to them immediately. Like, space out the times you text between, like, all this shit. And it's like, fuck. You start questioning your own decision making. So I would be lying to you if I didn't say that I've honestly I've questioned myself, which is like pathetic in the sense of I'm such a confident person. How have I ever allowed that to happen to myself? And I think maybe it's because I've continually to keep this type of conversation internal in me. Anytime it's like I've danced around being honest about the last time I had something consistent or the last time I really hooked up with a girl, like I've ran in the opposite direction and not wanted to fess up to the truth. And the truth doesn't make me any different than anybody, but I've allowed society's perspectives and what we think we have to be to penetrate me. That if I'm not sleeping with multiple girls, then I have no game, or I'm not attractive, or it's something about my personality, it's something about my energy. I've allowed myself to do that. But here's the thing. What I do know about myself is a lot. I've spent a lot of time these last couple of years really diving into myself, and we'll get into more like the self-love, but I've spent a lot of time giving myself that self-love, okay? I'm confident, carry my head held high. You could probably tell that through the podcast. You could probably tell that through my social media posts. It's not cockiness. It's just confidence. I've built confidence in myself and the energy that I carry just through the journey that I've been through the last couple of years. I'm somebody that's loving and that truly cares about the people around me. Whether it is the people that I live with directly, Steve and Dylan, whether it's the people that I work with that I don't directly see anymore because of COVID, anyone at Liquid IV, whether it's the people that I've podcasted with, whether it's the people that I meet every weekend for the first, any new person that I've met in the recent weeks, if I've interacted with you on Instagram, like I truly try to be a loving and caring person. Not because I'm trying to be I guess maybe slightly trying to be a people's pleaser, but in the sense of like, I want to make people feel good. I'm not doing it to kiss people's ass. I'm doing it because I like seeing people smile, and I like giving off a positive energy. And I like uplifting people. That's just something about me. That's my personality. That's just who I am at its core. I know I'm passionate about like I was saying, I know I'm passionate about my job with Liquid IV and with sharing my voice with the world. There is truthfully no upside of me talking about this type of conversation and opening up like this, other than, yes, it takes weight off my shoulder, but other than that, like, there's nothing guaranteed from me doing this other than being authentic myself and the feedback that I get from people that relate to it, or like it gives them it's a learning. To me, this is service. This is my way of service to the world. And I don't know if that's the best service that I could be doing to the world, but it's the one that I enjoy the most. It's kind of selfish at the same time because it makes me feel good, not egotistically, and I think I'm some hot shit, and I'm like, oh, I run a podcast, I'm got so many episodes out, I podcast with all these cool people. Like I utilize that as credibility to get bigger guests and to, push my upper limits of reaching my highest potential and trying to operate at the highest level possible as a podcaster, as a podcast specialist. Like I try to push myself to the tippity top because I want to see how far I can grow. But it's not because I'm some egotistical person. I don't think I'm any better than anybody else. And it's taken time to, get to this where I am in my life. I know I'm outgoing, and I know I love new experiences and meeting new people. That's just who I am. High energy, love new experiences, love meeting new people. Have been hitting my stride the last couple weeks, and I know that for a fact about myself. I know I'm disciplined. I put in the work daily, across the board. I know that I'm active, and I appreciate a fitness and healthy lifestyle. Work out 5 to 6 days of the week, eat really healthy or try my best. Once in a while we go off the deep end. We let ourselves have cheat meal. If The Rock can have a full course cheat meal with a platter of cookies and all this good carbs, I think I can cheat once in a while too. Granted, not as big, not as sexy as The Rock himself, but shit, if he's cheating, so can I. What I do know about myself as well is that I'm curious, and I always ask questions, and I always want to learn. That's why I got into podcasting in the first place. I wanted to understand why passionate people do what they do, and I'm always intrigued as to the why. And so I know that about myself. I'm a very curious person. Even if it doesn't directly impact me or like help me in any way in my day-to-day job, I just want to understand the why. Always want to know why. So all these are all great traits. In my personal opinion, these are all strengths of mine. But then I know myself. I can see this. I'm literally looking at a piece of paper and I see all these great things about myself. And, I take pride in everything I just went through because it's taking time to strengthen those skills and sharpen them. But then I'm asking myself, what am I lacking? Where in my life am I lacking that's allowed me to go so long without even having something intimate? Never mind sleeping with a girl in 3+ years. Why has it been so long that I haven't even just stumbled and came across somebody that was of interest? Now that I'm saying this out loud, right? I do some prioritizing before these podcasts. I write out notes clearly. That's why I'm able to flow. But then registering the answer in my mind, the reason I haven't found somebody in the last couple of years is because, which I'll get into in a second, I just neglected that area of my life, and I would not allow any love, well, not love, but I wouldn't allow any interest in women into my life because I was scared shitless that I was going to get my heart broken, which happened my senior year of college, which we'll get into right about now in a second. So when I look back on the last 26 years of my life, I honestly I've had a really weak relationship with women in significant otherwise, like true like girlfriend boyfriend type stuff, or like even like consistent like relationships. I've actually been extremely weak with this area of my life, and I don't know why. when I think about most of my childhood up and through college, I didn't really date. Literally the last girlfriend that I had was when I was 17 and a junior in high school. I'm going to be 27 in December, so we're talking a decade ago. This was also the girl I lost my virginity to. That's a fun fact. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But other than that, before her, I didn't really have girlfriends. I had these short term, and I think when you're younger too, it's like I had commitment with girls, but there wasn't like, oh, we're boyfriend, girlfriend. I had friends around me that I grew up with that I feel like were rotating through girlfriends every 6 to 12 months, and they would break up with one girl, or like, something would split with one girl. And then, another relationship would happen like 6 months later. I'm like scratching my head, like, how can I not even get into one relationship? This guy's been in 5 relationships in the last 3 years. And I'd be lying if I don't admit to the fact that back then, that shit bothered me then, but I kept it internally. Wasn't making content. I wasn't sharing my voice with the world, but like I questioned my own self of like, why don't you have a girlfriend? Why don't you have something consistent? Why? Me. It's got to be me. There's something wrong about me. That was something that I definitely thought about. And yeah, so like all the way up and through college, it was no girlfriends ever. It was short-term things with girls, maybe like one-night stands, or we'd hook up consistently for a little bit, and then either one of us would kind of lose steam and split ways. And maybe I just didn't have the game. I didn't have pull. I don't know. I don't know. Like thinking back on it, I think I definitely I didn't always have this confidence. I think it took me a long time to learn how to like have game, where I was going to college with kids that probably were pulling it in every night. Once again, not trying to. I want to be clear too. I'm not here to promote hooking up. Like, I know people have different beliefs. I know this could be very personal thing, religious thing. I mean, I'm not here saying that we all should be hooking up, and like if you're not hooking up with somebody, you're not cool, or like there's something wrong with you. This is the exact point of this podcast. I'm literally thinking out loud how I have been raised, not necessarily because of how my parents were raised, but like how the environment that I was raised in Chicopee, Massachusetts, and then college, and then where I am today in society, thinking and believing that like if you're not hooking up with girls, there's something wrong with you. Even though I know that's not true, I still allow myself to believe there is something wrong with me. And yeah, this is freaking crazy that I'm even doing this right now. I still can't believe I'm actually full throttle in this. So first 3 years out of college, I put it in zero effort, which I was kind of just talking about, and then kind of skipped into, backtracking my life, the young bearded man's life. I get out of college. I don't put any effort into any relationships. Long story short, and I've talked about this on plenty of podcasts before, I had this fling with this girl my senior year. She was a transfer. She transferred in as a sophomore. I was a senior. I fell head over heels, blonde, blue eyes. I was sold, gorgeous. We hooked up. We had a thing going. Go into the spring semester of my senior year. I'm super hot for a relationship. She starts to get cold. Not blaming her. Looking back on it, it was probably the best thing that could have happened for both of us. But I took this, and it personally hurt me for a long time. Like, I hate to admit, there were literal times that I remember my spring semester that like my boys would have to walk me out of a fucking party because I would mix in booze. The emotions start running. I start thinking about this girl. Maybe I see a girl that reminds me of her. And there were probably like 3 or 4 times that spring semester where I literally broke down. And my boy, Luis, shout out to you, Luis, if you ever hear this, Brazilian man, I would call him, beautiful man. He would literally walk me out of parties and bring me home because I was just a fucking wreck. And there were times it got so dark, and I hate to admit this because I never really talked about this, and my diet was screwed up. I wasn't eating I wasn't able to really eat because it was bothering me so much. It was a really dark time for me, and to emotionally think about it now, to who I am now and to where I was, it was not an easy time for me. I was graduating college. I didn't know what I was going to do after college. I was a couple months away. I had this thing for this girl, and that shit hit the fan, and I was in a dark place mentally, man. It fucking gets me choked up thinking about it because it was not an easy time for me, and oh boy, but I got through it. Tell myself I wouldn't choke up on this pod, but this is some real shit. I'm laughing because I'm trying to get myself to get back the energy. I don't want to freaking bring this to a tearjerker, but anyway, and I want it to be known. God forbid this girl ever hears this podcast. This was never intentional. She never did any of this to like put me down, but it's a great example, which I'll get into shortly, of how we control our thoughts and how, depending on the direction we go with allowing our thoughts to go, can really dictate how we see the world and the perspective. And so this girl was not intentionally trying to hurt me, but I was like, oh, she's out there to get me. She wants me to feel like shit. She like is turning me down to go hook up with all these other guys. And I was making up all these things in my mind. And so it just was like a domino effect. And it really messed me up for probably a solid year after that. And because then when I was graduating college and I was pulling from this experience, I said, you know what? I just went through what it feels like to not be in control of how somebody feels about me. I'm not doing this moving forward. I cannot waste the time, energy, or money. I'm about to be driving Uber full time. I just graduated college. I'm about to start this podcast. At the time I knew I can't allow myself to go put effort into somebody else because I know what it's going to take to build something great. And so now it's like when I look back on it, and it took me a while to make this realization of like how that was such a blessing at the time. Say we had made it work. Say we had stayed through and we made a relationship. I would have not put the full time, energy, and effort into that podcast, into Purpose in Youth, which really got me to where I am today, that got me to this episode. So it's like when I look back on it, at the time, it was the hardest thing for me to go through while all my boys and friends are like graduating college, in their careers, making money. I'm out Ubering the streets. They're out on the weekend, hooking up with girls, having a good time, telling me about their hookup stories. I'm like, yeah, I haven't, had anything. I've been just working. And so, I went head down. So that first 3 years out of college really has just been, that first, 3 years. I've been almost out of school for 3.5. Sorry, I'm like blanking right now because I have a lot of emotions rolling through me, as you can imagine. Anyway, so it was a blessing. It was a curse. Double down on my energy, double down on myself, put more time and effort into me. And, like I said, I went all in on myself. That girl that I slept with last was when, I would say sometime in the fall of 2017, right after I moved out to LA. That first year in Boston, I wasn't really going out. And then I moved to LA and I kind of gave myself those first couple months to like go out and meet people. And so I was going out on the weekends. And that's how I met this girl, and one thing led to another, blah, blah, blah. So if you've been following me on Instagram, I was pretty like I was full throttle on building, focusing on myself, investing myself, all this time after college. And then probably back in February, definitely back in February of this year, I had this breakdown where I kind of like had this awakening to, I had so much momentum going of like, I don't need a girl. I don't need to put time and effort into that. I was so focused on my career or like building the podcast, driving Uber, just staying busy, always staying busy, that I never had the time to like reflect. Take the job with Liquid IV last October. Incredible. And then February, a couple months, down the line, everything's kind of settled. I stayed busy through the holidays, and then we moved. And now February comes, and I'm like finally settling in to like, I have a job, I have an income, blah, blah, blah. And I had this moment on a weekend, a Saturday night, where I was sitting in, I didn't have anything to do. And I just like once again, I let the perspective go the wrong direction. I started letting all these thoughts get to my mind about what I was talking about earlier, like putting myself down, about like, you haven't put time and effort into girls. They're not attracted to you. You're not attractive. Like, there's something about you why girls don't want to talk to you, blah, 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 blah. When in reality, it was just me not throwing myself out there. And so I recorded myself talking about what I was going through in that moment in time, and I posted it to the world. And it felt great to just like put love out, or like to show what I was going through to people and being authentic to myself. So after that, I was like starting to get myself out there, starting to throw myself out there, and then boom, pandemic hits. Now I'm like, okay, great. I was ready to go out there and throw myself out there. Pandemic hits, then we get locked in. Fast forward to August, like I was talking about earlier in this podcast, I started going back on dates. And so then hold on, let me go back to that. Get hooked up with this girl through a mutual friend. We go on a couple dates. Everything seems to be going well. And then something happens. The tension it was kind of there, and then it kind of diminished. Ship sails. I like to tell people that she was scared to fall in love with me, so she moved on. Depends on who you ask. She might have a different story, but that's a story I'm sticking to. So that was cool. It kind of gave me some confidence. Like, I remember the first date we went on, it was supposed to be just a coffee date. Coffee date could be like, an hour, maybe 2. That first date ended up turning into like 7 hours. I went from coffee to then dinner to then watching the sunset on the beach. And it was a big moment for me, because it like reminded myself of like, yo, it's not you. Like, you just haven't put yourself into the environment to like have this happen. And I remember telling her pretty quickly on into the date, I was like, yeah, this is my first date in literally 3 years. And she couldn't believe it. And then like 2 hours later, while we were at dinner, she brought it back up and she said, is this really your first date in 3 years? And I said, yeah. She's like, you're doing pretty well. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's go, Bobby. Let's go. That was exactly what I needed to hear. And when I get excited about it, it's not me from an ego standpoint of like, I'm some hot shit. It was just confidence in myself. It was reminding me that like, you have the ability, boy. You are a confident, beautifully looking bearded man. Just be yourself, throw yourself out there. You got to keep putting effort into it. And so whatever, that ship sail is not a big deal. And then the last 2 months, I've talked about in recent podcasts about building community. I've been throwing myself out there into new environments, meeting new people, to build community, but also honestly to try to find somebody. And I hate that I have been putting effort into like looking. When I'm going out and I'm meeting new people, totally submersing into the environment. I'm there to meet new people and build community, throw myself out there, try these new experiences. But also in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, that girl's attractive. I wonder if she, is I don't know, maybe there's some tension for us, or that girl's attractive too. So I think we all do that, because that's what human beings do. We see something or someone we're attracted to and we want to pursue it. And so that becomes another thing, right? So like, I'm throwing myself out there, I'm getting better, which I know, like anything else in life, not going to happen after month 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, this could take me a while to rebuild. Like, if I'm being completely honest with myself, it takes time. And I'm trying to just enjoy the patience of this. And that's why I wanted to dive into it today, because it's fresh on my mind. And I know things are going to be changing in the next couple months, and I'll be laughing at myself when I replay this episode in 2, 3, 5, 6 months from now, which seems like a long time, but watch how quick that'll fly by. So it's like, I'm throwing myself out there into these environments, meeting new people, and what's really important, and let me tell you, it takes confidence, if you're a guy or a girl, to shoot your shot, because you will want to stop even throwing yourself out there by one denial or somebody not showing interest. And it is the worst feeling in the world, because I'm somebody who's very confident, and I will throw myself out there, and I don't care what people say on social media when I post podcasts and content. Like, it doesn't faze me. But when you're trying to shoot your shot with somebody you're attracted to and they just don't show the love back and they don't show the interest, that is when you start questioning who you are. And that is the worst thing that you can do. You start questioning, well, am I not attractive enough? Is it my personality? Literally all the questions I went through earlier. That's exactly what happens. What I would imagine for a lot of people. Maybe I'm the only one. Maybe I'm the oddball. But I easily start questioning my own self, and that's a problem. That's the last thing that I should be doing. Instead, I should go, okay, not meant for me, not meant for each other. Boom, on to the next, keep trying. And that's what I've been trying to do. So whether it's introducing myself to somebody in person, whether it's trying to slide through DMs and spark up a conversation, I've tried the dating apps. I'm over it. Bumble, Tinder, Hinge. I have friends that it's worked for. I have other friends that don't do it. I get bored. I know you got to put time and effort into that as well, but it just doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel real. It feels cheesy. I'm so much more of a people's person, which has been really hard with this pandemic. So I've retired the dating apps, and I don't know if I should be putting time and effort into it, but I have not seen any success, so I stopped doing that. But all that to say, while I'm shooting my shot and I'm throwing myself out there, I try to not let this shit get to my head, because I can go 0 for 10, 0 for 20, and I still have to remind myself that you got to keep showing up. And then it becomes that game once again. Am I being too aggressive? Am I showing too much interest too quickly? It's like, shit. I mean, I really have been out the game for a minute, and I feel like I'm not great. I'm really not great. I'm a confident person. Every area of my life I've been putting a lot of effort into, and this is just one area I have been putting effort. I need to be my biggest hype man. This is not Bobby normal. This is not the Bearded Man normal. I need to be my biggest hype man. I need to remind myself that I am a fucking great human being, that this is going to take time, that a lot of this has worked to my benefit. What I was talking about earlier with the girl from college, that ship sails. I make this realization that I need to invest all my time and energy into myself, and that's what I do. And so that's what I keep trying to tell myself, that and that's how I'm able to continue moving forward and not let this get to my head. But there are times that it does, and that's why I wanted to dive into it, because I want to be real with y'all, with the BMC, the Bearded Man community. Sometimes this shit gets in my head and it bothers me, and it stays on top of mind, and it's hard for me to like get it away. But there has been positivity from these last couple of years of going all in on myself. And before I dive into it, let me get a sip of this water, because I've been freaking ranting. Wow. You know the deal. High quality water, baby. Yeah, baby. Love me some water. Okay, back to the podcast. The benefits. The positive outlook that I try to remind myself of more often than not is all this time and energy that I've been able to dedicate towards myself, self-love. There's a lot of people out there that I think maybe don't put enough time and energy into themselves, so they seek other people for love, and they distract themselves from actually having the real conversation about the real and honest conversation with themselves about what they're doing with their life, the direction they're headed. Do they actually love the person they are? Do they enjoy loneliness? Which I'll get into at some point. Self-love is really important and crucial when you're trying to figure out your life. Couple things in the positives from it. For me, it's taught me to be more mindful, very, very aware of my thoughts, my actions, my goals, my feelings. I've had a lot of time to think because I haven't been chasing somebody, or there isn't that constant texting communication all the time. Even when I was seeing that girl back in August, we were texting daily for like 5 to 6 weeks. And so then there's like this thought of like, oh, should I text her back right now, or do I not? Or do I focus on work? And just that conversation in my mind alone was so new to me, because it had been so long that I had even to worry about that it was actually pulling energy away from my work and things that I was working on. Not a bad thing. I understand you got to put effort and energy into the areas of your life you want to work on. But it was I was able to recognize that and be mindful about it because I had spent so much time alone that I was like, wow, this is actually I actually have to like think about this. I haven't had to think about this in a long time because I've been so focused on myself. And anytime people would text me, it was about business, and it was pretty easy to like text them back immediately, get things figured out, and then cool, move on, and then keep working. And then somebody else would text me, what do they need? Okay, cool. Yeah, send me the project folder, or this needs to change, boom, move on. There was never this ongoing casual texting conversation that I hadn't even experienced since, honestly, college. And so that was even weird. Not weird, but it was like, wow, this has been a long time, Bobby. You've been out the game for a hot minute. So I think some of the positives of the self-love would be, like I said, I was more mindful. I've been able to practice good self-care, which is eating a healthy diet, working out 5 to 6 days a week, getting my like 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. When you're all in on yourself, you're able to prioritize your self-care because there isn't any excuses or anything else pulling you away to sleep in, to get out of work. Instead of working out, you're going to hang out with her or him. I've been able to actually prioritize that good self-care. Another positive outlook would be being able to set boundaries. I try to equally balance work and play in other areas of my life that I want to work on. And so I don't try to over push those boundaries because I'm very aware of my time and my own self-love of like putting my dedicated 8 hours towards Liquid IV, knowing that there's always more work that's going to need to be done. Save that for tomorrow. What's the other area of your life you want to work on? Okay, tonight I want to record this podcast. This is like personal hobby / passion project. Cool. Maybe tomorrow night will be the same thing. Maybe Wednesday night will be about building community. And so I set boundaries to go out and meet new people. Maybe the next night, somehow I pull a date out of my ass the next 3 days. Probably not going to happen. But hey, maybe that Thursday night I find somebody to go on a date with. So I've been able to set boundaries around the things that I want to prioritize in my life. And then I'd say lastly is just being able to live intentionally. I only say yes to things that I want to do. I'm very intentional about what I say yes to, and I'm very, very strict about what I say no to. So that's given me time to get back into this podcast game and allowed me to do this allowed me to, talk about anything I want to talk about via podcasting or like bringing guests in. It's allowed me the time to go out and meet new people in LA. I get to choose what I do and when. I'm not buying into anyone's schedule but my own. That is a beautiful blessing. I'm not here trying to work out a schedule with somebody else. I'm here to just create the schedule that I want to live by and not have to worry about getting it checked down by somebody else. So there have been some positive outlooks of self-love, of being more mindful about my thoughts, action, goals, and feelings, practicing good self-care, eating healthy, working out 5 to 6 days a week, sleeping 8 hours a night, setting those boundaries. I try to, like I was saying, get the equal balance of work and play in other areas of my life that I want to work on, and ultimately living intentionally where I get to say yes to things that I want to do. I'm not binded by anyone else's schedule but my own. So I get to go all in on myself. And I forget how fortunate that I've been in the last couple of years of doing that, because there are people that don't have that. I don't want to call it privilege, but I guess it could be looked at as a privilege because there are other people that, are in relationships and can't really prioritize their life similar to me. When I think about what is it that I want in someone, because I think it's important. You got to have an idea of what you're looking for in somebody. And that's something that like, I'm like so aware that I need to see these traits within somebody. Otherwise, I'm just not going to put time and effort into it. There have been people recently in the last couple months where like we hang out a couple times and I can tell quickly this is not the right person for me. And so instead of leading them on, instead of wasting their time, I just like end it there and I communicate with them. I don't just like leave them on read or like ghost them. That's not the move. That's never the move. Communicate with people and be honest with people. But I'm too cautious of my time that if I don't see these traits in somebody, I'm just going to keep it moving. At least 5 that I thought of would be, it's got to be somebody that is extremely passionate. It's got to be somebody that's independent, that can do what they need to do and, not need me all the time. I mean, of course, here to support, here to show that love when they need it. They got to be a go-getter / hustler, somebody that's, just a hustler at its core. Somebody that's outgoing, that loves people, loves new experiences, that, you throw them in a room by themselves and they're shaking hands and meeting new people. And ultimately, lastly, very obvious for me, is somebody that's just optimistic. Anybody that's pessimistic and has that negative Nancy mindset, it's just not going to work around me. I'm way too optimistic. I'm way too positive that, like, any ounce of that stuff, I get it. We all have our days. Don't get me wrong. I have my days too. But if it's that consistent negativity, just not going to fly. Not going to fly around me. And it's like weird when I think about when I just name those characteristics, like as I'm saying those words, I'm like envisioning this person. I have no idea what she looks like, but like I really try to trust and believe that that person's out there. And I'm not even talking about marriage. And that's something that I probably should have thought through before I got into today's podcast, which maybe I'm open to it. I'm open to everything. Maybe down the line it would make sense. First off, I got to find a girlfriend before I even think about marriage. But I don't know. I'm so curious about what having somebody like that, passionate, independent, go-getter, hustler, outgoing, optimistic. I'm so curious, like, how that would affect my life, having somebody consistently in my life like that, where there is that intimacy and there's like a relationship. I'm very fortunate I have people that follow all those traits around me at all times, but I think to have somebody that can keep you balanced and keep you on your toes, I don't know. It sounds like there's two sides. Part of me says you're in your 20s, like you're hitting the stride of your career. It's only going to be going better. It's only going to get better from here. Like, go out, have fun, like be playful and see where the nights take you with people and whatever, which is fun. But sometimes I think as society has at least formed my mind to think that, like, oh, if you're going out, you got to try to hook up with chicks and like whatever. But then part of me is like, what if you had something consistent that was like meaningful and authentic and real? Like, I am so much more attracted to that. And just having like that foundation. But I'm not saying that I need that to be happy. I don't need that. I've survived these last couple years without it. And that's, one thing that I've realized with going 3 years without sleeping with a woman or, doing the fun stuff. I don't need it to survive. I don't need sex to survive. Do I want it? Yes, of course. We have desires. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's not what you're into. I see beautiful women and I get attracted and my mind goes down the gutter of thinking, yes, imagine what it could be like to have some fun with them. But it's to me, it's more about that intimacy and it's about like what it takes to get to that level with a significant other, where it's like you're at your most vulnerable state. And, you hear rappers talk about pillow talk, but it's just an area of my life that I like I said, I feel like I missed out on that a lot of my life growing up, not really having a girlfriend. And then even through college and then after college, like there wasn't a lot of full consistency for most of my life. And I'm just intrigued. To me, it's an experience that I want to learn more about. I'm not saying it has to be a girlfriend or like we have to have like the titling of it. That doesn't have to be the thing. But I just like, I get so curious of like what that commitment could look like. I'm not going to get into their own lives, but, I have roommates. One's in a full-time relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend type thing. And I've seen that work to their benefits. And then I have another roommate who has been seeing the same girl for, since we've lived in LA 3 years. It's not boyfriend, girlfriend, but it is like a thing. It's two different worlds, but like I see what it's been like for them to consistently have the same person in their life, and it seems pretty awesome. But I try to remind myself this, as I've talked about in this podcast, because although society's beliefs and thoughts, at least in the U.S. and what I've been exposed to in my life, would point me in the direction that I have no game, I'm not attractive, blah, 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 blah. I try in those times, those few times that I slip and I let that shit get to my head, I try to remind myself that, Babe, you are loved, you are passionate, you are focused, you are attractive, you are driven, you are valued, you are kind, you are vulnerable, you are authentic, and you are you. I could not be more of myself than I am today. I stand by my weaknesses. I stand by my strengths. There's no way I would have made it this far in a podcast talking about this if I didn't fully accept the human being that I am. That I have a big forehead. That my body doesn't have the biggest biceps. I don't have six-pack abs. Like, I am who I am, and I'm happy to be who I am. We had a cue from the BMC, once again, Beater Man community, trying to turn this into a cult. Cult in the right way. One really good question that I got from Instagram was from my man Ben Bradford, and he said, do any thoughts of loneliness ever enter your mind? If so, how do you best deal with it? And it sure does, Ben. It sure does. I keep myself busy enough that most of the time the loneliness doesn't kick in because I'm always working on something, whether it's podcasts, reading a book, listening to podcasts, or work for Liquid IV, or watching Netflix. Like, I'm always keeping my mind busy. But then there's those times when it's quiet and I have the time to reflect. And so it does cross my mind. And this is why I'm doing this podcast today, because it has affected me and it has hurt me at times. So how do I deal with it? I try to be my biggest hype man. I try to remind myself of what I said earlier, like, I'm loved, I'm passionate, I'm focused, I'm attractive. I try to focus on self-love and how this loneliness is actually beneficial to me, especially being 26. This is the time to go all in on myself and to invest in myself. I try to, instead of think of this is happening against me, this is happening for me. This is a good thing. This downtime to myself is the best thing that could have ever happened to me because I'm able to invest in myself. And so I deal with it by staying busy and by learning and by growing and trying to make progress daily and by finding the things that I'm passionate about and by pushing myself to grow in every area of my life. That's how I beat it. And that's how I fight the loneliness. All this to say, if this has resonated with you in any way, then you're not alone. That was a big takeaway from this podcast I did with Michael Garmany, where he talks about how that's why he got into podcasting. He saw the benefit of how it was as a listener and how we can listen into conversations with people and we realize we're not alone with the way we think and the way we feel. And that's really powerful. And it's probably one of the most powerful things of why I listen to podcasts, because I have all this chatter in my mind sometimes for good and for bad. And so when I hear from other people that are successful or that I admire, it reminds me I'm on the right path or that I'm not the only one. And so that's why I opened up on a conversation like this. I have no idea how this is going to impact people. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know if this is going to be a favorable podcast or people are going to think this is a waste of time, but this is truthfully probably the most vulnerable that I could ever put myself in as a podcaster, because once again, society has led me to believe that if I'm not somebody that's hooking up with girls, then I'm not attractive, that I have no game, that there's something wrong with me, when I know that is absolute bullshit. I know that is not true. But I've allowed myself to believe that. And so I wanted to create this podcast and share it, because if I've allowed myself to believe that, there's got to be other people. Similar to when I listen to podcasts and I have those light bulb moments and going, I'm not the only one. I have a feeling there's somebody out there that will feel the same way. And if not, then I did it for myself. And that's why I do these podcasts, because it makes me feel fucking fantastic, because I let it out, I put it out there to the world, and I share what I'm feeling and how I'm feeling. It's not always glitz and glamour. It's not always the cool shit. It's not always the high highs. There's low lows as well. And if you're not sharing it at all, you're not being real. That stuff on Instagram a couple years ago where it was like posting pics in front of cars. I still see people doing that. Their Instagram's a highlight reel. That's not real, bro. That's not real. That's not authentic. You know damn well that is insecurity to a capital I. So I had to share it. I'm challenging you guys and gals, as the listeners, shoot your shot with somebody you're attracted to. There's got to be somebody that you follow, that you know, that you've always been attracted to, whether it's a guy, whether it's a girl, whatever you're into. Whatever you're into. Excuse me. Shoot your shot. If you made it this far in this episode, you got to shoot your shot. Do it today. Do your best. You got nothing to lose and everything to gain. If this person doesn't respond and leaves you on scene, pat yourself on the back because you took a step forward. You took that shot. I always looked at it as I can live the rest of my life, to full circle the story, to full circle this entire podcast, that girl in college, my heart broken, blah, blah, blah. At the end of my senior year, I asked her, I said, and I knew the answer was no. But I told her, I said, I need to ask you this question because it's going to give me peace of mind for the rest of my life if this never happens. I know I at least tried. And I said, I want you to be my girlfriend. How do you feel about that? And she said, not the right time, blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's fine. I knew this was the answer. But I now know for the rest of my life, I can look back and go, I at least threw that out there. I at least put that on the table. And so I always think it is easier to live the rest of our lives knowing that at least we tried, at least we put ourselves out there, at least we put everything that we had on the table. So my challenge to you, put it on the table, shoot that shot, slide through that DM, go up to that person you've always wanted to ask out and do it. And if they deny you, and if it doesn't work out, you smile and you keep it moving. You get back to the free throw line and you shoot again with the next person and you keep shooting shots. Because all it takes is one, and you don't know that maybe that one DM that you send, or maybe that one person you actually go up and approach, maybe that's the one. Not the one that you marry, not the one that you're with for the rest of your life, but maybe that one shot actually goes through and it succeeds, and you have a great relationship and it turns into something beautiful. You never know unless you take that shot, and that's something that I need to remind myself of daily. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this podcast at all, and I provided any value, please, please, please screenshot this episode, post it to your IG story, tag me at Bob, B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. Please share it out. This is, without a doubt, the most vulnerable solo pod I've ever done in my career. I was anxious thinking about it all day, knowing that at the end of the day I was recording this podcast, but I knew it had to be done. Cranked up some music before I got in here and recorded, got myself hyped up, biggest hype man. I said, you got to do this, Bob. You got to do this, and I feel fucking fantastic that I did it. So thank you for tuning in. Once again, if you enjoyed it, please screenshot this episode, post it to your IG story, tag me at Bob, B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. And I greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate you guys and gals tuning in. The BMC, the Bearded Man, is growing one episode at a time. We're going to keep cruising, keep delivering that high quality podcast content. The world going to sleep on me, but soon enough, baby, they're going to wake up and they're going to know what's good. Whatever you have in front of you, have a great rest of your day, night, whatever you're doing, just do it great. You know the drill, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys and gals soon enough. See ya!